Welcome back to the Two River Theater Players and our Zoom reading production of Anton Chekhov's Three Sisters in a translation by Paul Schmidt. I had a great time with these folks last night. Madeline George, who was here, sent me an email just a bit ago saying, they're killing it, and y'all are. I'm actually thinking once this pandemic is over, the first thing I'm going to try to do is write a grant to take this company on tour. I was thinking maybe our first stop should be the resort town on the Black Sea, Yalta. We could do a little swimming and sailing and a bit of Chekhov. So anybody else who wants to come with us, that's our plan. We, as you know, got a performance from these folks of Acts 1 and 2 of the play. Tonight we're going to finish up with 3 and 4, and then hang around with everybody for some conversation, some questions, some discussion about the play, and anything else that comes up. And to begin with tonight, for anybody who's new, but also maybe as a reminder for folks who were here last night, I've asked Sara Holdren if she would mind doing a quick recap of the plot from the first 2 acts. So I'm going to turn it over to Sara, and then she's going to turn it over to Katie, who's going to get us all going. So, all right, y'all. Thanks, Sara.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody. So here we go. So last night in Act 1, we were presumably around the year 1900-ish in Russia, in a town somewhere in the Russian provinces. We're going to get nerdy here and tell you that Chekhov wrote a letter to Gorky while he was writing this play, saying that he was writing a play about 3 sisters who lived in a town not unlike Perm. And for some context, Perm is a town that in Chekhov's day would take you about 6 days traveling by trains and riverboats to get to Moscow. It's out like near the Siberian border. So it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's not like tiny, but it's provincial. So we are out there in 1900, turn of the century, and we meet our titular 3 sisters, Irina, the youngest, Masha, the middle sister, and Olga, the oldest sister, and we meet them on Irina's 20th birthday, or more accurately, her name day. It's May, it's sunny outside, it seems like a lovely day. We're in their home that they share with their brother Andre. We also learned that their father, who was a general in the Russian army, died a year ago today. So this day is sort of tinged with sadness, but they're kind of trying to make it through it. We also meet a whole bunch of soldiers who kind of hang around at their house, like as the daughters of a general, they're sort of a neighborhood hub of a bunch of people who like seem to have jobs in the military, but really just spend a lot of time like drinking tea and being in this house. So we meet Chebutikin, who is an older military doctor, and is constantly there sort of reading the paper. We also find out that way back in the day, he was potentially in love with the mother of our siblings. We meet a lieutenant named Tuzenbach, who insists to us that he is Russian, despite the fact that he has a very German name. We meet his friend / enemy Solioni, I believe a sergeant who often makes people very uncomfortable, who sort of says strange, awkward things and kind of can't get comfortable in social situations. He and Tuzenbach are close to friends, but also really sort of get on each other's nerves frequently. And we also meet Fedotik and Rode, who are also 2 officers in the battalion who spend a lot of time hanging around this house. During the course of this birthday party, we learn that the battalion has a new commander, the Lieutenant Colonel Vershinin, who has just come to town. And this guy shows up at the party and kind of makes a big splash, especially with Masha, who is very interested in listening to everything that comes out of his mouth. We also learn that Andre is potentially in love, potentially just flirting, we don't know at first, with a local girl named Natasha, about whom the sisters are all pretty condescending. Eventually, everyone shows up at this birthday party. We have Vershinin there, we have Natasha there. We also meet the old housekeeper Anfisa and an old civil servant named Farapont, who, despite being kind of ancient and pretty much deaf, is still sort of a glorified errand boy for the county council. Throughout the course of this birthday party, we eventually learn that Tuzenbach is in love with Irina and has been sort of pursuing her for a while. And even though he tries to make a profession of love to her, she would rather think about getting back to Moscow. The sisters were all born in Moscow, and have not been there in a really long time, have been living out here in the sticks for quite some time. And all three of them in their various ways dream about getting back there. The least likely to do that is Masha, who is married to a local teacher named Kuligin. So while Olga and Irina still sort of daydream about being able to go back to Moscow, Masha's a little bit more stuck. The act climaxes when Natasha feels like she's being teased by everyone at the party, runs out of the room, is pursued by Andre, who in her moment of being flustered and feeling sort of attacked by everybody, Andre says, "I love you, you're beautiful, you're amazing, let's get married." And that is the climax of the act. So Act 2 takes us at least 9 months in the future. We know this because Natasha and Andre are now married with a baby, probably more like a year and a half or 2 years. Three Sisters is really interesting, partly because it's the longest time span of a Chekhov play. Like when you sort of mathematically put the acts together, it's probably a play that takes place over about 4 or 5 years minimum. So that's kind of wild. It's like a big chunk of these characters' lives. So we're about a year and a half, let's say, down the road. Natasha and Andre, as I said, are married with a baby. The baby's name is Bobik. Natasha is also living in this house now. It's a special night. It's Carnival Night, which is also known as Maslenitsa in Russia. It's kind of like a Mardi Gras tradition that actually takes place like just about this time of year. It's sort of a mid-January pre-Lent tradition. And it's like a wild night. It's a topsy-turvy night. It's like there are costumes and lots of drinking and parties and games and like, you know, a sort of night of misrule. There's a really great part in War and Peace that happens on this night where Natasha's whole family like goes out sleigh riding and dresses up in like different genders and different costumes. And it's like a really kind of ecstatic evening. So everybody's like really looking forward to a damn good time, but also there's like not much fun in the house. They're all waiting for the carnival people to show up, but Andre is depressed. Natasha's worrying about Bobik. It's sort of this weird energy of like people wanting a party and not really quite successfully getting one. Eventually, Vershinin and Masha show up and start talking together and get real steamy and like almost hook up, but then somebody walks in the room. Irina and Tuzenbach come back from Irina's new day job. In Act 1, it was really important to Irina to work, not just to sit around idly, but to find some purpose in the world. And so now she works at the post office and is finding that that is not the sort of glamorous, purpose-fulfilling job that she had in mind. Tuzenbach is still pursuing her, still sort of relentlessly wants her to recognize his love for her. So the room is filling up with people again and filling up with tension again. We learn a little bit more about Soleoni. He and Tuzenbach talk. Everybody sort of starts getting drunk together. We learn that Tuzenbach is planning to leave the military, which is a big deal because the sisters are kind of attached to this idea of being a military family, and the Baron is planning to become a civilian and try and find honest work. Things kind of get loud and messy. Eventually, Tuzenbach ends up playing the piano. People are drinking. It's like turning into a party. And then Natasha shuts it down and tells Andre, "You got to kick everybody out. Our baby is not feeling well. Everyone needs to leave." So everybody gets really moody and clears out of the house. Right around that time, Soleoni takes this very opportune moment to come in and tell Irina that he is also in love with her and has a sort of upsetting confessional of love scene that she doesn't really know how to handle. We also see Kuligin and Olga come home from work, it's kind of tired and frazzled. We see Vershinin again, who has disappeared momentarily earlier in the act because right after he and Masha almost like got something going together, he received a letter telling him that his wife, who is mentally, who has a lot of issues and we don't quite know what they are, has quote unquote tried to commit suicide again. So he goes home, but apparently doesn't think that's important enough to stay there for long and comes back looking for Masha. So we see him again at the end of the act. And so at the end of the act, we kind of have another state of tension where all of these people were sort of expecting a party, expecting a big night of revelry. And instead everything has gotten sort of diffused and delayed and like, you know, shut down in some way or another. And everybody's kind of trickled out into the snow to go try and essentially drink alone, sadly. We leave Irina alone on stage at the end of the act, kind of isolated, and the only person left in this house wishing for Moscow, sitting in the middle of the stage and wishing for Moscow. Act 3 jumps us ahead another baby for Natasha and Andre. So where we're headed now is another at least 9 months in the future. That's what I got.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. All right. Katie, take it away. Yes. All right. Good.
Thank you, John. If everybody can make their way backstage, we'll get started with Act 3.
Olga, Act 3. Olga and Irina's room. Beds right and left behind screens. It is after 2 in the morning. Fire alarms are heard in the distance. They have been going for some time, and it's obvious that no one in the house has been to bed yet. Masha lies on the sofa, dressed in black as usual. Enter Olga and Anfisa.
They're sitting downstairs in the hallway right now. I told them to come on up, I said. You can't just sit there like that. And they're crying their eyes out. We don't know what happened to Papa, they said. Maybe he got burned up. Can you believe it? And there's some more people out in the yard. They don't hardly have any clothes on either.
Olga takes a dress out of the closet.
Nana, now take that gray one, and that one too, and the blouse too, and take this skirt. Nana, what a terrible thing, my God. The whole of Kirsanov Street must have burned. Take this one and this.
She piles dresses in Anfisa's arms.
The poor Verschiernens got an awful scare. Their house nearly burned down. They can spend the night with us. We can't just let them go home. And poor Fedotich lost everything. His place burned down to the ground.
Olga, dear, you better get Farapont. I'll never manage this all by myself.
Who's down there? Farapont, come up here, will you?
Outside the windows, the sky is red from the fire. Fire engines are heard going by the house.
What a nightmare all of this is, and how tired of it I am.
Enter Farapont.
Here, take this stuff, take it downstairs. The Kolotilin girls are in there in the hallway. Give it to them. Wait, give this to them too.
All right. Moscow burned down too, long time ago. Them Frenchies sure got a surprise.
Go on, go on, get out.
All right, I'm going.
Nana dear, give it all away. We don't need any of it, Nana. Give it all away. I'm so tired, I can hardly stand. We can't let the Verschiernens go home. The girls can sleep in the living room. The colonel can stay with the Baron, and Fedotich, well, he can stay with the Baron too, or maybe someplace downstairs. The doctor is drunk again, dead drunk. Wouldn't you know it? So we can't put him with him. And Verschiernen's wife can go into the living room too.
Olga, Olyushka, don't send me away. Please don't.
Don't talk nonsense, Nana. Nobody's going to send you away.
My little girl, my little darling. I do what I can. I work all the time. I know I'm not what I used to be. Everybody says, send her away. But where am I supposed to go? Where? I am old. I'm old. I'm old.
Nana, why don't you sit down? Poor love, you're worn out. You just rest, darling. You're so pale.
Natasha enters.
They're saying we better get a group together to organize aid for the people who got burned out. It's a lovely idea, don't you think? We should help out the poor anyway. That's one of your responsibilities if you're rich. Bobik and little Sophie are fast asleep. They're sleeping as if nothing in the world were going on. And we've got so many people. Everywhere you look, the house is full of them. There's some kind of flu going on. I'm scared the children will catch it.
No, you really can't see the fire from this room. It's quieter here.
Yes, I must be a mess. Who said I was putting on weight? It's not true, not a bit. And Masha is asleep. She must be worn out, poor thing. Don't you dare sit down when I'm around. Get up and get out of here.
Anfisa goes out.
Why you keep that old woman around, I will never understand.
Excuse me? I don't understand either.
You just spoil her. She doesn't do a thing. She's a peasant. She could go be living on a farm. I like things nice and neat around the house. I don't want things sloppy. Poor sweet thing, you're tired. Our headmistress is all tired out. When my little Sophie grows up and starts high school, I'll have to start being scared of you.
I'm not going to be headmistress.
Yes, you are, Olga. It's all settled.
Well, I refuse. I can't. I don't have the strength for it. You were so rude to Nana just now. Forgive me, I'm in no condition for scenes like that. I'm even a little faint.
I'm sorry, Olga. I'm sorry. I did not mean to upset you.
Masha gets up, takes her pillow, and leaves.
Dear, you have got to understand, we may have been brought up rather differently. Still, I can't bear scenes like that. I get depressed when I see someone treated like that. I get physically sick. Really, my strength just goes.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Kisses her.
The least little vulgarity and indelicate impression, and I get terribly upset.
I know I say things I shouldn't, dear. I know, but you have to agree she could go live on a farm.
But she's been with us for 30 years.
But she can't do any work anymore. Either I don't understand you or you don't understand me. She cannot work. She just sits around the house or she sleeps.
Then let her sleep.
What do you mean let her sleep? She's a servant, isn't she? I just don't understand you, Olga. I have 2 nurses for the children. I have a maid and a cook. What do we need that old woman for? What for?
Fire alarms in the distance.
I think I've aged 10 years tonight.
We've got to come to some agreement, Olga. Once and for all. You're at the high school, I'm at home. Your job is teaching, mine is running this house. And if I tell you something about the servants, then I know what I'm talking about. I know what I am talking about. And I don't want to see that stupid old woman around here tomorrow. And don't you dare argue with me. Don't you dare. Really, if you don't move down to the basement apartment, we are always going to be fighting like this. It's terrible.
Enter Cooligan.
Where's Masha? We should have gone home long ago. They say the fire's dying down. They only lost 1 block, but it was so windy at first they thought the whole town would burn down. Oh, I'm tired. Olga, dearest, I sometimes think if I hadn't married Masha, I would have married you, Olga. You're a wonderful woman. I'm so tired.
What's the matter?
The doctor's been drinking, wouldn't you know? He's extremely drunk, wouldn't you know? I think he's coming up here. Do you hear him? Yes, here he comes. What a character, really. I'm going to hide.
Goes behind a screen in the corner.
Well, he hasn't had a drop in 2 years, and all of a sudden he starts in again.
Olga goes upstage with Natasha. Chebutikin enters. He walks straight as if he were sober, crosses the room, stops, looks around, goes over to the washstand, and starts to wash his hands.
The hell with them. The hell with all of them. They think I'm a doctor and I know how to cure people, but I don't know anything. I forgot everything I know. I don't remember anything, not a thing.
Olga and Natasha go out.
The hell with them. Last Wednesday, I went out to Zasip to take care of a sick woman. She died, and it's my fault she died, my fault. Maybe I knew something 25 years ago, but now I can't remember a thing. My head is empty, and so is my heart. Maybe I'm not even human. Maybe I don't even exist. Maybe it's all in my imagination. Oh, I wish I didn't exist. What the hell? 2 days ago, I went to the club. They were all talking about Shakespeare and Voltaire. I never read them, but I pretended like I did. So did all the rest of them. They all pretended. Make me sick. I kept thinking about that woman who died on Wednesday. I kept thinking about everything, and I got feeling ugly and twisted and mean. So I went out and got drunk.
Irina, Vershinin, and Tuzenbach enter. Tuzenbach has on brand new civilian clothes. Very stylish.
Come in and sit down. Nobody will bother us here.
If it weren't for the troops, the whole town would have burned. Terrific, every one of them. Good boys, just terrific.
Hooligan coming out from behind the screen.
Does anybody know what time it is?
Oh, it's already after 3. It's getting light.
Everybody's just sitting around downstairs. Nobody wants to leave. Even that Solyoni of yours is down there. Doctor, you ought to go to bed.
It's all right. Thanks a lot.
You've been at the bottle, Ivan Romanich. Congratulations. In vito veritas, the ancients used to say.
They've been after me to organize a benefit concert for the people who were burned out.
Here, who could you get?
We could do it if we really wanted to. Maria Sergeyevna, for instance, she plays the piano beautifully.
Beautifully.
She forgot how long ago. She hasn't played in 3 years, maybe 4.
Nobody in this town understands music. Not a single soul, but I do. And I tell you, she has talent.
You're right, Baron. I love Masha a great deal. She's a splendid woman.
Can you imagine what it must be like to play so beautifully and to realize that there is no one who understands you?
Yes. But would it be proper for her to perform in public? Of course, I really know nothing about it. It might be perfectly all right, but you have to remember that our headmaster has rather particular views. He's a fine man, a very fine man, very intelligent. I suppose it's not really his business, but still, if you want, I could probably have a talk with him.
Ebutikin picks up a porcelain clock and examines it.
I'm a mess. I got terribly dirty at the fire. I heard a rumor the other day, something about our brigade being transferred. Maybe to Poland, maybe to the Chinese border. Nobody knows.
Oh, that's what I hear too. Well, that will empty out the town.
And we're leaving too.
Ebutikin drops the clock and it smashes to pieces.
Smash.
Ivan Romanich, such an expensive clock and you broke it. You get an F- for conduct.
That was Mama's clock.
Maybe. Mama's. All right, so it was Mama's. Maybe I didn't even break it. Maybe it just looks like it's broken. Maybe we don't even exist. Maybe it just looks like it. I don't know anything, and nobody else knows anything either. What are you all looking at? Natasha's having a little affair with Protopopov, but you can't see this. You just sit there and you can't see that Natasha is having a little affair with Protopopov. Don't you like this little thing I'm giving you?
Well, this is all really very strange, isn't it? When the fire started, I ran right home. As soon as I got there, I realized our house was safe and sound, but my 2 little girls were standing in the doorway. All they had on was their underwear. Their mother was gone. There were people running everywhere, horses, dogs barking, and on those little girls' faces was a look of horror, fear, anxiety. I don't know what all. It wrung my heart to see them like that. My God, I thought, What will those little girls have to go through during their lifetime? I picked them up and brought them here, but all I could think of was what they would have to go through before they die.
Fire sirens.
And I got here. I found their mother, angry, screaming.
Masha enters, carrying her pillow. She sits down on the sofa.
And when my little girls were standing there in their underwear with no shoes on, and the street was all red from the fire, and the noise was terrible, I thought, this is the way things used to happen years ago. A surprise attack, arson and looting. And yet, of course, there's really an enormous difference between then and now, isn't there? And after a little time goes by, say 200 or 300 years, people will look back on our life with horror. Or they'll laugh, and the things we do today will seem strange and complicated and impractical. And oh, what a life that will be then. Excuse me, I'm talking too much again. It's just the mood I'm in. You're all asleep. Well, I'll keep talking anyway. What a life that will be! Just think, right now there are only 3 people like you in this town. Another generation there will be more, and then more and more, and time will come when the whole world will have changed because of you, and no one will live like you do. Everyone will live like you do. And finally, even you will become part of the past, and people will be born who are better than you. I'm in the strangest mood today. I feel an urge to live, to do something wild. Lobvi se vorasti pokorni, ja je parivi blagodvorni.
Tram tam tam.
Tram tam.
Tra-ta-ta.
Tra-ta-ta?
Enter Fedetic.
It's all burned. Everything's gone. It's all burned up.
What's so funny about it? Is everything burned?
Everything. It's all gone. The guitar burned, and the camera burned, and all my letters burned. Oh, and I bought you a little notebook, and that burned too.
Enter Solyoni.
No, please, Vasily Vasilich, go away. You can't come in here.
How come the Baron can and I can't?
We should all go, in fact. How's the fire?
They said it stopped. Now, I find that extremely funny that the Baron can come in here and I can't.
Tram tam tam.
Tram tam.
Let's go downstairs.
Very well. We'll just make a little note of this. Wee, 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 wee.
He goes out with Vershinin and Fedotic.
That Solyoni has gotten the place all smelly. Oh, the Baron's asleep. Baron. Baron.
Oh, I was higher than I thought. A brick factory. Actually, it's not a dream. I'll be starting work at a brick factory soon. I've already had an interview with them. Oh, you're so pale and beautiful. You're fascinating. Your paleness lights up the dark. You're sad. You're unhappy with life. Oh, come away with me. Let's go off and work together.
Nikolai Lvovich, will you please get out?
Oh, are you here? I didn't see you.
He kisses Irina's hand.
Goodbye. I'm going. Oh, when I look at you now, Irina, I remember a while back on your birthday how alive you were, laughing and talking about going to work. Oh, what a happy life I dreamed of then. And where is it? You have tears in your eyes. Go to bed. It's already daylight. It's morning. Oh, if only I could sacrifice my life for you.
Nikolai Lvovich, get out! Really, you are the limit.
I'm going.
Are you asleep, Fyodor?
What?
You should go home.
Masha, dearest. Sweet Masha.
She's worn out, Fyodor. Let her get some rest.
I'm going right now. My dear wife. My wonderful wife. I love you. My only.
Mama Samant.
Isn't she astonishing? I've been married to you for 7 years and it seems like only yesterday. No, truly, you are astonishing and I'm happy. I'm a happy, happy man.
I'm bored. I'm bored. Look, there's one thing I can't get out of my head, and it feels like someone nailed it there. I mean, Andre, he took out a mortgage on this house, and his wife got all the money, and this house isn't just his. It belongs to the four of us. He must know that if he's got any decency left.
Why bring it up, Masha? It doesn't affect you. Andre owes money all over town. I feel sorry for him.
I don't care. It's still revolting.
You and I are not poor. I work. I teach at the high school. I give private lessons in my spare time. I'm a plain, honest man. Omnia mea me comporto, as they say.
I don't want anything, but the injustice of it revolts me. Go home, Fyodor.
You're tired. You take a little rest. I'll wait downstairs for you. Get some sleep. I'm a happy, happy man.
He goes out.
Andre has gotten so petty, so slow, and so old living with that woman. He used to want to be a scientist. And yesterday, he was bragging that he'd finally become a member of the county council. He's a member, and Protopopov is the chairman. The whole town is talking and laughing, and he's the only one who doesn't know anything, doesn't see anything. Tonight, everybody went to see the fire, but not him. He sits in his room and pays no attention to anything. He just plays his violin. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. Awful. I can't stand it. I can't stand it anymore. I can't, Masha.
Olga enters and goes to straighten up her dressing table. Irina sobs loudly.
Throw me out, please. Get rid of me. I can't stand it anymore.
What's the matter? Darling, what's the matter?
Where is it? Where did it all go? Oh my God. I've forgotten everything. My head is all mixed up. I can't remember the Latin word for window or ceiling. I keep forgetting things. Every day I forget more, and life goes by and it won't ever come back. And we're never going to Moscow. Never. I can see it all now. We are never going to get there. Oh, I'm so unhappy. I can't work anymore. I won't work anymore. I'm sick of it. I've had enough. I worked at the telegraph office and I work at the municipal building and I despise it. I hate everything I have to do there. I'm almost 24. I've been working all this time and my brain has shriveled up. I've lost my looks. I've gotten old and nothing. There's no satisfaction in any of it. And the time passes and you realize you'll never have the beautiful life you dreamed of. You just keep digging yourself deeper and deeper into a hole. And I am in despair. I'm really in despair and I don't understand why I am still alive. I should have killed myself long ago.
Don't cry, my little girl, don't cry. It tears me apart.
I'm not crying. I'm not. It's all right. There. See, I'm not crying anymore. It's all right. It's all right.
Dearest, let me talk to you as your sister, as a friend. If you want my advice, marry the Baron. After all, you respect him and value his friendship. I know he's not very good looking, but he's a good man, an honest man. People don't marry for love. They marry because they're supposed to. At least that's what I think they do. I would have married without love. I wouldn't have made any difference who it was, as long as it was a man, honest man. I'd even marry an old man.
I kept waiting for us to move to Moscow. I knew I'd meet my true love there. I used to dream about him. But you see, it was all a bunch of nonsense.
Darling, I know. When the Baron resigned from the service and first came to see us in his civilian clothes, and he was so plain looking, I started to cry. And he asked me what I was crying about, and what could I tell him? But if God brings the two of you together, I would be very happy. You see, things are very different from what you thought, very, very different.
Natasha enters with a candle in her hand. She walks silently across the room in a straight line from right to left.
You'd think she started the fire herself.
Masha, you are so silly. You were the silliest person in this family. I'm sorry, excuse me.
My dear sisters, I want to confess something. I want to bare my soul. I want to confess something to you, and then I never want to say another word about it again. I want to tell you everything right now. It's my secret, but you should know it anyway. I can't keep it to myself anymore. I'm in love. I'm in love. I love that man, the one you saw just now. That's it. I love Vershanen.
Stop that. I'm not going to listen.
What can I do? At first I thought he was strange, and then I started feeling sorry for him, and then I fell in love with him. In love with his voice, with the things he says, with all his problems, with his two little girls.
I'm not listening. I don't care what you're saying. I'm not listening.
Olga, you're the silly one. I mean, I'm in love. Ah! See? Just my luck. And he loves me. It's also funny. Don't you think so? Doesn't it strike you funny? Darling, oh my darling, we'll get through life somehow, no matter what happens to us. When you read about these things in books, it all seems terribly silly and predictable, but then you fall in love yourself and you realize that nobody knows anything about it. Everyone has to figure it out for herself. My dear sisters, there. I've told you. Now I will never say another word about it. The rest is silence.
Enter Andre, then Farapont.
What is it you want? I don't understand.
Andrei Sergeyevich, I already told you 10 times.
In the first place, when you speak to me, you call me sir, not Andrei Sergeyevich.
Sir. The firemen want to know, can they go through the yard to get to the river? They can't keep going around and around like they've been.
All right, tell them all right.
Farapont leaves.
Where's Olga? I came to ask you for a key to the cupboard. I lost mine. I know you've got that little one.
Olga gives him a key in silence.
What a terrible fire. It seems to be dying down. That damn Farapont made me so mad. I don't know how silly I sounded. Sir. Why don't you say anything, Olga? Look, it's time you stop this nonsense. All this sulking for no reason, and you and Masha are here. Irina's here, fine. Let's get this out in the open once and for all. What is it you all have against me, huh?
Not now, Andre. We can talk tomorrow. What an awful night.
Don't get upset. I just want to know very calmly, what is it you have all against me? Just tell me.
Roshinan's voice.
Ta-ta-ta! Goodbye, Olga. God bless you.
She kisses Irina.
Sleep well. Goodbye, Andre. Leave them alone. They're exhausted. We can talk tomorrow.
Leaves.
Please, Andre. Let it go until tomorrow. It's time to go to bed.
No, I'm going to say what I came here for, and then I'll go. Right this minute. In the first place, you've got something against my wife, Natasha, and I've noticed it since the day I got married. Natasha is a lovely person, honest, straightforward, and well brought up, in my opinion. I love my wife, and I respect her, you understand? I respect her. I want to make sure the rest of you respect her, too. I repeat, she is a lovely person, and all your remarks and attitudes, well, excuse me, but you're just being stuck up. In the second place, you all seem mad at me because I'm not a scientist or a professor or something, but I have an occupation. I'm a member of the county council, and I consider that just as honorable and just as important as an intellectual career. I'm a member of the county council, and I'm proud of it, if you want to know. In the third place, I still have something more to say. I mortgaged this house. Get your permission. It's my fault, and I'm sorry. And I ask you to forgive me. I had to do it because I owed a lot of money, $35,000. I don't gamble anymore. I gave it up. But the main thing is, you're all girls. You get a military pension, and I don't. I don't have any income at all.
Isn't Masha here? Where is she? It's funny.
Honest woman. When I get married, I thought that we'd all be happily together. Happily. Oh my God. Oh, my dear sisters, my darling sisters. Don't you believe me? Don't you believe me?
Where's Masha? Isn't she here? This is very disturbing.
Leaves. Sirens.
Olga, somebody's knocking.
It's the doctor. He's drunk.
An awful night. Olga, did you hear the news? The brigade is leaving. They're being transferred someplace far away.
Just a rumor.
We'll be left here all alone. Olga.
What?
Olga, dear, I do respect the Baron. I do. He's a wonderful man. I will marry him. I promise. Only please, let's go to Moscow. I beg you, please. There's no place in the world like Moscow. Let's go, Olga, please.
Curtain. Act 4. The old garden of the Prozorov house. A long walk lined with fir trees leading to the river. Across the river is a forest. At the right is the porch of the house, a table with a bottle and glasses. They have just been drinking champagne. It is noon. People occasionally walk through the garden towards the river. A group of 5 soldiers crosses in a hurry. Chebutikin is in good spirits. He sits in a chair in the garden, waiting for someone to send for him. He wears a cap and carries a stick. Irina, Kuligin, wearing a decoration and walking and with his mustache shaved off, and Tuzenbach stand on the porch, saying goodbye to Fedotik and Rodet, who are coming down the steps. Both officers are in field uniform.
Oh, you're a good friend. We had good times together. Once more. Goodbye, Rode.
Till we meet again.
No, this time it's goodbye forever. We will never see each other again.
He kisses Irina's hand.
Maybe meet again sometime.
What? In 10 or 15 years? But we won't hardly recognize each other, and we may be very nervous and embarrassed. Hold it. Just one more time.
So we'll never see each other again. Thank you for everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, just hold it a minute.
I hope we do meet again. But you be sure to write us. Don't forget.
Goodbye, trees. Hey! Hey! Goodbye, Echo.
Who knows? Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get married there in Poland. You get a Polish wife, they kiss you all the time and call you kakanie.
We've got less than an hour. Solione's the only one from our battery going on the barge. The rest of us go with the men. There are 3 batteries going today and 3 more tomorrow. And after that, peace and quiet will settle down upon the place once again.
As well as god-awful boredom.
Where's Maria Sergeyevna?
Masha's somewhere out in there in the garden.
Oh, I've got to say goodbye to her.
Goodbye. I'd better go, otherwise I'll start crying.
Hugs Tuzenbach and Kuligin and kisses Irina's hand.
We had such a wonderful time here.
Here's a little souvenir, a little book with a little pencil attached. We'll go this way, down by the river.
They go off through the trees, looking around as they go.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Goodbye.
In the garden, Fedetik and Rade meet Masha and say goodbye. She goes off with them.
They're gone.
They forgot to say goodbye to me.
Why didn't you say goodbye to them?
I must have forgot. Anyway, I'll see them 2 days from now. I'm leaving tomorrow. Only 1 day left. But next year, I retire, and then I'll come back here and spend the rest of my days with you. Just 1 more year and I get my pension.
He puts one newspaper in his pocket and takes out another.
I'll come back here and reform my life. I'll be so reserved, so respectable. A real model of retirement.
Well, you certainly ought to reform your life, my dear. Anything would help.
You're right. I think so too. It's going to rain today.
Ivan Romanich, you're unreformable. Unreformable.
Oh, maybe I should take lessons from you, then I'd be better, eh?
Fyodor shaved his mustache off. I can't bear it.
So?
I can tell you what your face looks like now, but I won't.
What do you mean? It's perfectly normal. A modus vivendi. Our headmaster shaved his mustache, so when I was promoted, I shaved mine. Nobody likes it. But that makes no difference to me whatsoever. I'm quite happy with a mustache or without a mustache. I'm still a happy man.
He sits down. Upstage, Andre wheels a baby carriage.
Ivan Romanich, dear, I'm really worried. What happened yesterday on the boulevard?
What happened? Nothing. Just a lot of nonsense. What difference does it make?
What I heard was Solioni and the Baron met on the boulevard near the theater.
Please, that's enough, for God's sake.
Near the theater, and Solioni started teasing the Baron, and he couldn't take it anymore and said something insulting.
I don't know anything about it. It's all a lot of nonsense.
And they say that Solioni is in love with Irina, and that's why he can't stand the Baron. Well, it's understandable. Irina's a wonderful girl. She's very much like my Masha, both very thoughtful. Only your personality is easier, Irina, of course. Masha has a very good personality too. I love her, I really do.
From the garden backstage, hey, hey, yoo-hoo!
Everything scares me today. I'm all ready to leave. I just have to finish packing after lunch. The Baron and I are getting married tomorrow, and then we go away to the brick factory, and the day after I start teaching. And that's when our new life begins. God, I hope it all works out. When I passed the exams for my teaching certificate, I practically cried. The cart is coming to pick up my things.
Well, I suppose you're doing the right thing, but somehow it doesn't seem all that serious to me. It's just a lot of ideas, not much practice. Anyway, I wish you all the best. Sincerely, I do.
My dear little darling, you've all gone so far ahead of me, I'll never catch up. I'll stay right here, left behind like a migrating bird that's too old to fly. You fly. Sweetheart, you fly. Theodore Ilyich, you should never have shaved off your mustache.
It's enough out of you. Well, the troops are leaving today, and then everything will be back to the way it used to be. Whatever people say, Masha is a wonderful woman, an honest woman. I love her and thank God for her. People turn out differently. There's a clerk in the local tax office. Kozarev, his name is. We went to high school together. He never graduated because he couldn't understand the ut consecutivum construction. He's terribly poor, not well at all. And whenever I see him, I say, "Hello there, ut consecutivum." Yes, he says, ut consecutivum. That's right. And then he coughs. I've been lucky all my life. I'm happy. I've even got a certificate of merit, and now I teach the ut consecutivum construction to others. Of course, I'm intelligent, more intelligent than most, but that won't necessarily make you happy.
Inside the house, someone is playing the Maiden's Prayer.
And after tomorrow evening, I won't ever have to hear her play that Maiden's Prayer again. I'll never see Protopopov again. Protopopov is sitting right there in the living room. He even showed up today.
Has the headmistress gotten home yet?
In the distance, Masha walks slowly in the garden.
We sent for her. If you only knew how hard it's been for me, living here alone without Olga. Now that she has an apartment near the high school, she's headmistress and she's busy all day long, and I'm here by myself. I have nothing to do. I'm bored, and I hate that room I'm in. I made up my mind. If I can't go to Moscow, then that's the way it has to be. It's fate. There's nothing you can do about it. Nikolai Lvovich proposed to me, and I accepted. He's a good man. It's amazing how good he is. And all of a sudden, I felt happy, less depressed, and I felt like working again. Only last night something happened. Nobody will tell me what, but I feel uneasy about it.
Nothing happened. It's just a lot of nonsense.
The headmistress is here.
Here's the headmistress. Let's go.
He and Irina go into the house.
It's going to rain today.
Masha comes up. In the distance, Andrei wheels the baby carriage.
He just sits there. He just sits and sits.
So what?
Nothing. Did you love my mother?
Very much.
Did she love you?
That I can't remember.
Where's my man? That's the way our old cook, Martha, used to talk about her policeman. My man. Where's my man?
He's not here yet.
When you only get happiness in bits and pieces and then lose it anyway, like me, you begin to get bitter about it. You don't care what you say anymore. I'm full of anger inside.
Andrei pushes the baby carriage towards them.
Look at our little brother, Andre. All his hopes are gone. 1,000 people raise a bell. They spend all kinds of money and effort, and all of a sudden it falls and goes smash. All of a sudden, nobody's fault. Just like Andre.
I wish they'd quiet down in there. What a racket.
It won't be long now. I've got an old-fashioned watch. It strikes. The first and second and fifth batteries all leave exactly at 1. And I leave tomorrow.
For good?
I don't know. Maybe I'll come back next year. Who the hell knows? What difference does it make?
Somewhere in the distance, street musicians are playing a harp and a violin.
The town's almost empty. It seems to be falling asleep. What happened by the theater yesterday? Everybody's talking about it. I don't know a thing.
Nothing. It's all a lot of nonsense. Soglione started teasing the Baron, and he lost his temper and insulted Soglione. And the way it wound up, Soglione had to challenge him to a duel. It ought to be about time now, 12:30 in the state forest across the river. You could see it from here. Bang, bang. Soglione thinks he's Lermontov. He even writes poetry. I think he carries the joke too far. This is his third duel.
Whose third duel?
Soglione's.
What about the Baron?
What about the Baron?
I'm all confused. All the same, I don't think you should let him. He might hurt the Baron or even kill him.
The Baron's a good man, but one Baron more, one Baron less. What difference does it make? Let them fight. It doesn't make any difference.
Someone shouts in the distance, "Yoo-hoo, hey, hey."
That's him, that's Skvortsov calling. He's the second, he's waiting for me.
In my opinion, dueling or even being a doctor at one is immoral.
It only looks that way. There's nothing here. We don't exist. It just looks like it. What difference does anything make?
You just talk all day long. You live in a climate like this where it's always seems about to snow, and still you go on talking. I won't go into that house. I can't. Tell me when Vershinin gets here. The birds are migrating already. Swans. Or maybe they're geese. You happy things.
She walks off.
Our house is emptying out. The officers are going away. You're going away. Irina's getting married. I'll be here all by myself.
What about your wife?
Farapont enters with some papers.
My wife is my wife. She's honest. She's respectable. Well, she's a good woman, but somewhere deep down inside her, there's something blind and vicious and mean, some kind of animal. Whatever it is, she's not really a human being. I'm telling you, this is a friend. You're the only person I could ever say this to. I love Natasha, you know that. But sometimes she disgusts me so much, I get sick to my stomach. I can't understand what it was, why I love her, or why I used to.
My boy, I'm leaving tomorrow. We may never see each other again. So let me give you a little advice, all right? Put on your hat, pick up your stick, and get out of here. Don't look back. And the farther away you get.
Soglione, with two officers, crosses the garden upstage. When he sees Chebutikin, he crosses towards him. The officers continue on.
Doctor, time to go. It's already 12:30.
I'm coming. I'm sick and tired of you people, every one of you. If anybody wants me, Andre, tell them I'll be right back. You people.
Said the dog to the flea, don't jump on me. What's the matter with you, old man?
Leave me alone.
Not feeling well?
You go to hell.
No need to get upset. Just gonna have a little fun with him. All I want to do is wing him like a woodcock. That makes a whole bottle today. They still smell. My hands smell like a corpse. Right, how does that Lermontov's poem go? But every rebel seeks a storm, as if a storm bring peace.
Yeah, sure. Set the dog to the flea. Don't jump on me.
He exits with Solyoni, shouts in the distance, "Yoo-hoo, hey, hey!"
Papers to sign.
Leave me alone. For God's sake, leave me alone.
He pushes the baby carriage.
You got papers. You got to get them signed.
He goes off after Andre. Enter Irina and Tuzenbach wearing a straw hat. Kuligin crosses the garden shouting, "Masha, yoo-hoo!"
He must be the only man in town who's glad the soldiers are gone.
You're probably right. Our town is emptying out.
Listen, dear, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Where are you going?
I have to go, and I promised them I'd see them off.
That's not true, Nikolai. Why are you acting so funny today? What happened yesterday by the theater?
I'll be back in an hour. My beloved, I have loved you for 5 years, and I still can't get used to the fact. You seem more and more beautiful to me. You have such wonderful hair, such eyes, and tomorrow I'll take you away from here and we'll work. We'll be rich and my dreams will all come true. You'll be happy. There's just one thing wrong. It's you don't love me.
I can't. I'll be your wife. I'll do what I'm supposed to do. I'll be faithful, but I don't love you. No. I'm sorry. I've never been in love. I used to dream about love. I used to dream about it all the time. But now my soul is like a piano that's been locked up and the key is lost. You look so upset.
I didn't get much sleep last night. Oh, I've never been frightened in my life. I've never been afraid of anything, yet now I can't sleep. I'm tormented by the thought of that lost key. Say something. Say something to me.
What? It's so quiet here. These old trees just stand in the silence.
Say something to me.
What do you want me to say? What?
Anything.
Stop it. Stop it.
It's funny how the stupidest little things in life can seem so important and all of a sudden and for no reason. Let's not talk about it. I feel happy. It's almost as if I were seeing these trees for the first time in my life, and they all seem to be looking at me and waiting for something. What beautiful trees they are. And how beautiful the life around them ought to be.
Shouts in the distance, "Yoo-hoo, hey, hey!"
I must go. I'll be late. This tree is dead, but it still moves in the wind with the others. I feel like that. If I die, I mean, I'll still be a part of life, somehow. Goodbye, my darling. Those papers you gave me are on my desk, under the calendar.
I'm coming with you.
No. Irina.
What?
I didn't have any coffee this morning. I asked them to fix me some, will you?
He walks off quickly. Irina stands thinking for a moment, then wanders into the garden and sits in a swing. Andre comes in with his baby carriage, followed by Farapont.
Andrei Sergeyevich, they're not my papers. They're official papers. I didn't write them.
Oh, whatever happened to the past? When I was young and happy and intelligent, when I dreamed wonderful dreams and thought great thoughts, when my life and future were shining with hope. What happened to it? We barely begin to live, and all of a sudden we're old and boring and lazy and useless and unhappy. This town has 100,000 people in it, and not one of them has ever amounted to a thing. Each one is just like all the others. They eat, drink, sleep, and then they die. More of them are born, and they eat, drink, and sleep too. And then because they're bored, they gossip, they drink, they gamble, they sue each other. The wives cheat on the husbands, and the husbands lie. They pretend they don't see anything or hear anything. And the children end up just as aimless and dead as their parents. What do you want?
What? Papers. Gotta get them signed.
Sick and tired of you.
Doorman over to the government's office was saying, he says this winter in Petersburg, it got down to 200 below, he says.
The present is awful, but when I think of the future, I feel better. In the distance, the light begins to break. I can see freedom. My children and I will be free from laziness, from drinking too much, from eating too much every Sunday, from too many naps after dinner, from living like insects.
2,000 people froze, he says. Says people was scared. Or maybe it was Moscow. Can't remember.
My dear sisters, my wonderful sisters, Masha, dear Masha.
Who's making all that noise out there? That you, Andy? You'll wake up little Sophie. Ce n'est faut pas. Le Sophie et les deux désavoues. Oui. You want to talk? Give the baby carriage to somebody else. Farabont, you take that carriage away from him.
Yes, ma'am.
Takes the carriage.
I'll be quiet.
Bobbick. Naughty Bobbick. Silly Bobbick.
All right, I'll look through them and sign what I have to, and you can take them back to the office.
He goes into the house, looking through the papers, and Farapont wheels the carriage.
Bobbick, how do you say, Mama? Oh, sweet thing. And who's that? That's Auntie Olga. Say hello, Auntie Olga.
Street musicians, a man and a girl, come into the yard. They play a violin and a harp. Vershinin, Olga, and Anfisa come out on the porch and listen for a while. Irina comes up.
Our yard is like a parade ground. People are always coming and going. Nana, give the musicians some money.
She gives them some money.
God bless you, dears.
The musicians bow and exit.
Poor people. Really, hello. Oh, my dear, what a life, what a life. We're at the high school. Olga and me in one of the faculty apartments. The Lord is taking care of me in my old age. I never lived so good, ever. It's a big apartment, rent-free. I've got a room and a bed of my own, all rent-free. And when I say my prayers and go to sleep at night, my Lord, I am the happiest woman in the world.
Olga Sergeyevna, we're leaving right away. I have to go. I wish you all the best, the very best. Where's Maria Sergeyevna?
She's in the garden somewhere. I'll go find her.
Yes, please, hurry. I have to hurry.
I'll go look too. Masha! Yoo-hoo!
She and Irina go off into the garden.
Well, everything comes to an end. Now it's time to say goodbye. The town gave us a sort of farewell lunch. Champagne, the mayor made a speech, and I ate and listened, but my heart was here. I kept thinking of you. I'm going to miss this place.
Do you think we'll ever see each other again?
Probably not. My wife and my 2 little girls will stay on another month or so. If they need any help, do you think you could?
Yes, of course. Don't worry. Tomorrow, there won't be a single military man left in this town, and it will all be a memory. And of course, for us, will be the beginning of a new life. Things never work out the way we want them to. I didn't want to be headmistress, but here I am, headmistress, and of course, I'll never get to go to Moscow.
Well, thank you for everything. Forgive me if things were... I talked a lot. Too much, I know. Forgive me for that, too. And don't think badly of me.
Why doesn't that Masha hurry up?
What else can I tell you by way of farewell? Shall we talk a little more? Life isn't easy. Sometimes it must seem stupid and hopeless, but we have to remember that it is getting constantly brighter and better, and I don't think the time is far off when we will be completely bright. I've really got to go. Mankind is passionately seeking something, and eventually we'll find it. I just hope we find it soon. We must find a way to join love of work and love of higher things, mustn't we? Well, no, I must go.
Oh, here she comes.
Enter Masha.
I came to say goodbye.
Olga moves a little distance away.
Bye.
A prolonged kiss.
Now, that's enough.
Write me. Don't forget. Let go of me. I've got to go. Olga Sergeyevna, take her. I've got to go. I'm late.
Shaken, kisses Olga's hand, embraces Masha once again, and goes away quickly.
Now, Masha, stop, dear.
Enter Kuligin.
It's all right. Let her cry. It's all right. Masha, dearest, my sweet Masha, you're my wife, and I'm happy no matter what happened. I'm not complaining. I haven't a single reproach to make to you. Olga is my witness. Let's start life over again, just the way it was before. I'll never say a single word about this. Never.
Beside the sea, there stands a tree, and on that tree, a golden chain. A golden chain. I'm going crazy. Beside the sea, a golden chain.
Calm down, Masha. Calm down. Give her a drink of water.
I won't cry anymore.
She's not going to cry anymore. That's good.
A muffled shot is heard in the distance.
At the sea, there stands a tree, and on that tree, a golden chain. An educated cat, a golden tree. I'm all confused. My life is a disaster. I don't need anything anymore. I'm all right. I'm all right now. What difference does it make? What does it mean beside the sea? Why can't I get it out of my head? I'm all confused.
Irina comes in.
Calm down, Masha. It's a good girl. Let's go lie down.
I'm not. I won't go in there. I'm not going into that house.
Let's just sit here for a moment. We don't have to say anything, okay? I'm going away tomorrow, remember?
Yesterday, I took this away from one of the boys at school.
He takes out a fake beard and mustache and puts it on.
Looks just like the German teacher, doesn't it? Those boys are too funny.
Really does look like you're German.
No, it really does.
Oh, don't, Masha, don't.
Exactly like him.
Enter Natasha.
What? Little Sophie is in there with Protopopov? So tell Andre to take care of Bobik. Such a fun children. You're going tomorrow, Elaine. What? Oh, you gave me a scare. I've gotten used to having you around, you know. It won't be easy seeing you go. I'm having to move Andre into your room, and his violin, he can screech away in there. And little Sophie gets his room. She's just the sweetest thing. Such a darling little baby. This morning, she looked right at me with those big eyes of hers and said, Mama.
He is a charming child, I must say.
That means tomorrow I'll be here all by myself. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have down all old trees, especially that dead one. It's so ugly and scary. Sweetie, that belt doesn't do a thing for you. Not a thing. You need something more stylish, something with a little color in it. And then I'm going to have them plant lots and lots of flowers all over the place so it'll smell nice and pretty. Who left this fork out here? I want to know who left this fork out here. Do you hear me? Shut up when I'm talking to you.
He does get mad.
Music plays. A march.
They're going away.
Enter Chebutikin.
Our men. They're going away. Well, I hope they have a pleasant trip. Let's go home. Where's my hat and coat?
I took them inside. I'll get them right away.
He goes into the house.
Yes, it's time to go now. Now we can all go home.
Olga said it.
What?
Nothing.
What?
It's just I don't know how to tell you.
It's not true.
Yes, it is. What a mess. I'm all upset. I'm all worn out. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway, what difference does it make?
What happened?
What a horrible day. Darling, I don't know how to tell you.
What? What is it? For God's sake, tell me.
The Baron was killed in the duel.
I knew it. I knew it.
I'm all worn out.
He takes a newspaper out of his pocket.
Let them cry. Sara Holdren. It's going to rain today. What difference does it make?
The three sisters stand close to one another.
Listen to the music. They're going away. One of them has already gone away for good. We're alone. And now we have to start our lives all over again. We have to go on living.
Someday, everyone will know what this was all about. All this suffering, it won't be a mystery anymore. But until then, we have to go on living and working. Just keep on working. I'll go away tomorrow by myself. I'll teach school and devote my whole life to people who need it, who may need it. It's autumn. Winter will come, and snow will fall, and I will go on working and working.
The music sounds so happy and so positive. It makes you want to live. Oh, dear God. The day will come when we will go away forever too. People will forget about us. They will forget what we looked like and what our voices sounded like and how many of us there were, but our suffering will turn to joy for the people who live after us. Their lives will be happy and peaceful, and they will remember us kindly and bless us. My dears, my dear sisters, life isn't over yet. We'll go on living. Music sounds so happy, so joyful. It almost seems as if a minute more and we'd know why we live, why we suffer. If we only knew, if we only knew.
The music grows softer and softer. Kuligin, happy, smiling, brings out Masha's hat and coat. Andre wheels another baby carriage with Bobik.
It's going to rain today. What difference does it make? What difference does it make?
If we only knew. If we only knew.
Curtain.
Excellent. I know, Devin. It is moving, isn't it? Yeah. It is, well, fantastic. Yes, thank you all very much. It is wild. I don't know about you all, but I just don't get enough of this Chekhov in my life. And just hearing you all reminding me how kind of perfectly this play gets at the heart of what is tragic comic. How many times I find myself laughing and then upset that I was laughing at you because I felt so sorry for you. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be processing for a little bit, but I wonder if folks in our audience want to give a minute to think about questions or comments that you might have. But we might begin by even just doing this amongst ourselves here as an acting company. I wonder if the experience of this is anything that any of you wants to comment about. I was listening in a little bit backstage before the show started and heard a couple of people say that they didn't know this play well. Somebody said that they hadn't even ever read it before. And I expect for many of us, it's not, sadly, an experience we know well and deeply, getting to experience Chekhov on stage regularly. So I'm wondering for any of you for whom this was a kind of new experience among the company, or Michael Hurst, who keeps popping up. What was it like to hear it while performing it? anybody, any of you all.
I love this translation.
Why, Dwayne?
I don't know what I was thinking, but it was much more colloquial than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I was expecting, but I really like this translation. It's really easy to speak.
I feel like I don't want to speak for you. I think that's great. And we could talk more about this because this is actually a thing I think about a lot. And I'm wondering if what you would say is something that I find myself saying a lot about Chekhov. I feel like that, I hope we don't have too many Brits out in the audience, but I feel like one of the burdens that Chekhov carries for American audiences is that very often we've experienced Chekhov and his Russianness shot through a kind of British sensibility, because for so long, English language productions of Chekhov were based on English translations and or kind of English British views of what it means to be Chekhov and what it means to be Russian, and to be in the country in the way that these plays often are, and for there to be this aristocracy in the way that there often is, that our kind of translating bridge to that very often has been through a British experience. And I personally feel like that's kind of both conflicting about how I'm getting to the heart of the play, and also just allowing me to miss out very often on a thing that I felt like you guys had today. And even in some of your performances, playing around with rhythm that is much more Eastern European, much more Russian, and kind of gutsy and physical, and as you say, kind of colloquial and real, and and has definitely a poetry to it, but not a height in the language that has that, to my ear, often kind of tighter British thing. It's definitely one of the reasons for which I have, in thinking about producing Chekhov here, I really wanted to find some artists who wanted to do it, who wanted to find that heart of what makes these things Russian and how we as Americans can connect and understand that. And I have to say, Sara, in her passion for Chekhov and the way she's spoken about it, lined up with Madeline as a writer, as a playwright, who has a love of Chekhov, and they both, Sara and Madeline, speak Russian, and I think no Russian, let me say that, no Russian. They have a real connection to the Russianness of it that I think allows them to sort of move past all this collected baggage of this kind of Britishness that we attach to it. So make a long comment there to your, I think, very astute and right on, and obviously, Dwayne, kind of felt experience of how to connect to these characters through the language in a much more, I found, much more direct route to it.
I think the British thing has to do with the class, the difference in the classes, and that's why it's, and it's really strong in this. They talk about it all the time, and we see it going on kind of in the country now. There, people that have, any intelligence whatsoever are labeled elitists, and there's a real anger toward someone that can speak a sentence, and it's bizarre to me.
I love that you're saying that, because I sat here both nights thinking this audience is going to hate me for saying this thing I want to say, which is a kind of cliche, but isn't it amazing? I experience it all the time. How can this play just land in our lives and be so resonant, be so reflective of our situation, of our culture, of many of the tensions that we are dealing with, just like you say there, Dwayne. I think the play feels like this is exactly the kind of moment, or the last number of years and probably a few more to go, really working out the same kind of crap that we're working out about just about class, about this notion of being elite or not. Sara, I think.
Yeah, like just historically, it sits at like an interesting place too, because it's like, I mean, I I think I'm not looking at my like timeline right now, but I'm pretty sure the serfs were freed by the emperor in like 1860 something. So we're like 40-ish years after that. And technically, and they were freed, but also like saddled with debt and not in any way helped to become, you know, functioning like members of society. So, and then we've got the revolution coming in, you know, like a little more than a decade. And I feel like the energy of Chekhov's plays, I mean, especially Cherry Orchard, but also, but all of them, like they have this sort of awareness that they are in the, Paula Vogel, the playwright, has this thing that she talks about where she talks about movements, either artistic or social, going through three phases. It's like a phase of innocence, a phase of, I'm going to misphrase her because I can't remember, but it's like a phase of innocence, a phase of experience, and a phase of decadence. A phase of decadence. And it's like when you get to the phase of decadence, something has to, like something, a breakage is coming. Like something's got to give. And it's, I feel like these plays come from an age of decadence in the same way in which we live in a certain kind of age of decadence, when we're really aware that like there are structures that are already crumbling, that need to crumble further, that, you know, are on the way to being broken down but aren't far enough yet. You know, it's like these exist in a place like that, and have such an expansive, like have this massively expansive sense of compassion for people, no matter where they are on that spectrum of struggle.
Isn't that, that's the other thing that just, God, got to spend more time with Chekhov, because he does it in the most surprising ways for me that great playwrights do, where just as you're saying, the empathy that I can mock character, he can make me mock characters and make me see some of you in ways that are risible and that make me laugh at you, and then seconds later absolutely pull on the strings of my empathy for those characters. He has such a respect and love for even the characters that he seems to be presenting in the most laughable way in some ways, or he's always going to find empathy, which I think is what a great playwright struggles or manages or geniusly does with all of his or her characters always.
I just dropped a link into the chat, which is like, it's an older New Yorker article, so some people might have seen it already, but it's a really beautiful piece about, it's by actually someone who, like Chekhov, is also a doctor and a writer. And it's about Chekhov as like the sort of pioneer of what this person calls clinical compassion in modern writing. And it's just a really beautiful, this essay is beautiful, so I just put it in the chat for people.
Thank you, Sarah. That sounds great. I think we could all use a little clinical compassion in our lives. Learning that would be really good. So how about others of you in the company? And Katie, if while we're chatting a bit, if you can just monitor the chat as I encourage audiences to put questions into the chat or comments that you want to make. And I had proposed to Katie that we might, if you wanted in audience, actually to ask a question live with on your video camera, we could pop you on stage with us and you could ask a question or make a comment live. So let us know about that in the chat if you would. In the meantime, I'm wondering if others of you, I'm kind of especially interested in those of you in the company who didn't know this play or didn't know it well. What was it like to experience it? Anybody? Dan Montano is a Chekhov scholar and expert, so he couldn't speak of coming new to it.
I know all about Chekhov. You know, one of the first things I read when I read, I admit that I
Wait,
cheated
you don't have an accent?
summary.
He doesn't have a Russian accent, old man Russian accent.
I don't have a Russian accent. I went right to a summary of it before I actually read the play. And
whoever wrote the summary really hated this play. It really was just, the summary was like, yeah, and this happens, and then this happens, and then they're just all bored. And he wrote this summary with such derision that I was like, why are we doing this? God, everybody was hated. But the one thing and on the paper, of course, it doesn't really start to come together. It really comes to life. I mean, I guess, obviously when you read it, so much of acting is reacting. So when you start to get that, when you're starting even on Zoom, when you're getting that from the other people, then it starts to bring it to life and humanizes these people. And while there's not a lot, there may not be a lot going on the outside. It's all inside. They even, they're everything they talk about the duel. We don't ever see the duel. It happens outside. Everything happens outside. It's all outside.
Yeah, the fire's outside. The affairs are happening outside.
Right.
It's like all the yeah.
So
and it's about what's going on.
I don't know. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means. Of what he. It seems like it was on purpose.
Yep.
That he wrote that way on purposely. I'm not the one to say why.
Moscow Art Theater couldn't afford a full fire on stage.
Well, I do wonder if it's another thing that always resonates for me is just, what do we mean? What does he mean? What do these women mean? What especially does Irina mean about this longing, this yearning to be outside of where you are? It feels somehow thematically similar to what you're saying, that everything's happening out and over there in our minds, I guess. But I think what Chekhov is also doing for us in this way of kind of compassion and empathy is painting each of you, feeling each of you as somebody who's experiencing it all in here, and inviting us as audience to feel it with you. As I say, both in a way that would make me laugh, but also kind of make me cry for you at the same time. Which feels, this is me being sort of, again, kind of cliched and maybe perhaps unfair, but there's something about its being Eastern European. There's something about its Russianness that feels right about that, or at least in my sense of what that means, that feels right and necessary to what you're talking about, the humanizing of it.
Hi, John. We do have we have Susan Wyman here. Who I
Susie
love.
Wyman. Yay. I don't know if everybody knows Susie Wyman, but watch out, because Susie Wyman is, a scholar, a historian, and she lives here in our community. But she taught for a number of years at Oxford University, and is rather smart and brainy. So she's going to ask us a really hard question that I'm going to make her answer herself. But go ahead, Susie.
Hello, everybody. Am I on, John?
You are. We hear and see you.
Well, I have a comment to make about Chekhov and Bob Recknitz.
Yeah.
Bob Recknitz loved Chekhov, and I majored in Russian history and literature at college when I knew Bob, and he always said that Chekhov was, some of the plays were really hard to get into. So he recommended to me that I read a short story called The Lady and the Lapdog. Mm-hmm. And he said, it is just a gem, and it's a wonderful way to get into Chekhov. And and Chekhov's short stories are wonderful. So I recommend them to you as a way to get to know Chekhov. And I just want to end by saying I loved the play and how you did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie. Susie, you don't happen to know or could recommend a good translation and or collection of those short stories? Do you know of one?
I will find one and text to you.
Great, thank you. Great. somebody else from the staff looked like I saw a hand raised, or maybe that was just a swatting of a fly.
We do have another comment in the chat from possibly a different SW.
Okay.
Who wrote, it's interesting and odd how Vershinnen kept talking about how wonderful and perfect the future will be, and no one else resonated with that until Olga said this in the final scene, sort of a reprise. Somehow there's this unrealistic hope for the future that underlies the theme of the play.
Yeah.
And thank you for that comment.
Thank you. Yes. Vershinen is a really, God, a beautiful character, beautiful language, but the philosophizing and the thread of that he starts earlier on in the play feels something like an aspect of the author that makes me curious to find out more about that. And a kind of prescience probably in Chekhov about what was to come, and or hope for the future, that is interesting. Yeah.
Something I'm working on personally is not being so focused on the future or the past. I don't want to shut the door on the past, but I don't want it. I'm trying desperately to live one day at a time, and and looking into and yearning for the future is a sure way to be discontent in the present.
That's interesting that you're telling us that in the context of this play, where time and presence and past and future are definitely at play here, but also that you're saying that I think probably resonates for everybody here. In our current situation, where we have very little control over the future, and are all confronted with the present and its immediacy every day, right? Stuck at home as we are and whatnot. Corinda, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it ties in very much with what Dwayne actually just said, and so much of this. I haven't read Three Sisters since college, I think. So the perspective I've had, and I'm less familiar with Three Sisters than I was with Cherry Orchard or The Seagull, from being 20-something years old and reading as Masha, being in it and really, and Sarah, I was with you all the way. It was fantastic. But really living in it as an actor, and then to have, I'm not going to say exactly how many, but 20 some years post coming into this and now playing an 80-year-old woman, but hearing it from a completely different perspective after an insane amount of life perspective. It never struck me earlier on. What didn't land to me when I was younger was this desperate yearning for everything that we've been saying, something outside of where we are in this moment. Wherever you are, it's not good. And this almost, again, desperate need to convince yourself that if you just work, if you just do this thing, very specifically work, which is very Russian, especially at the time, saying, if I just do this thing, then I will find meaning. I will have this thing. And everybody, and is Anfisa, who I never paid attention to actually be the only one to come out and say, I'm so happy. Here I am at the end of my life and I have everything that I wanted and I'm so happy. Juxtaposed to the sisters losing everything, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think, again, without having just where I'm seeing that now in my life, differently than the way I had seen it when I first read it and was first working on it, and makes me wonder, how are we going to look at it? How am I going to look at it again in another 20 years? It's just, like you said, a lot to process and a lot to chew on. So,
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. That's, and I love that. I love that the play and the experience of the play and your experience in it got you to thinking about that 20-year or so span in your life, and that's another thing I feel like I could would love to hear everybody talk about, but just that, how we experience something at one point and then what happens in these intervening years that allow us a deeper experience. But I also wonder if what you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I wonder if you're saying some aspect as well of what we're also talking about about right here and now.
Sure, absolutely.
That there's something that happened for you about a reflection of the here and now that we're all in.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And you said the words, of course, because it's just throughout the play, and I couldn't help but doing my own selfish and personal thing about the notion of idleness and work. And what are those? What is that? What is that for all of these people? What especially is that for Irina? But also, again, thinking about being on the precipice of a time, like Sarah's talking about, of excess and luxury. And what was that other word, Sarah, that Paula,
oh yeah, I said decadence, which is
decadence.
like weird
Yeah.
because it implies luxury, but I think the more important thing is excess. I think it's a system like calcified somehow.
Yeah.
Like heading towards breakdown.
And something for me felt instructive about where we are now, that I thought, I'm going to need to, like Corinda, I'm going to need to process that about my own experience at the moment. Yeah. Others.
I have another question in the chat from Beth. It
Okay.
struck me in this reading that it would be an interesting play to set in a more modern time. I'm wondering if you had developed any intentions for your staging of the play had you been able to do it this year.
Very good question, Beth. Yes, I personally agree with you that when Sarah and Madeline and I talked about this, I don't think we weren't obviously thinking about what this exact moment was going to be like. But I do think, as we've all been saying, there's something about this moment that we're in, maybe that we felt and that Sarah and Madeline felt in a kind of prescient way a year and a half ago when thinking about doing this. But I know, and I'm going to let Sarah talk about it because she's done some thinking about a production, and she and Madeline have done some talking about the function of time and presence and contemporariness in terms of the play. So Sarah, do you feel like you could say some of the things you've been thinking about that I don't know, that I really love that you've talked about in terms of that with the play?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I think is I'm going to go back to what was said earlier about in general, I think there's been a disservice done to Chekhov in this country for a lot of reasons, and partly to do with a sort of kind of quaint Britishization and sort of masterpiece theaterizing of his plays. Like we tend to get the idea, kind of like Dan was saying earlier, that they're about like bored people in period costumes sitting on couches and like having a lot of ennui. And they're just so much bigger than that and so much more explosive than that and so wild and so like they have such massive souls that I don't think really get communicated to us in a lot of the ways that we've aesthetically been presented with them. And one of the things I think is at fault for that, but I don't say at fault in like a way, just like it's a fact, is like we have to deal with translation and with adhering to things that are in copyright. And Russians get to deal with Chekhov like we deal with Shakespeare. They get to deal with a play in the public domain that's anybody's property now, that can be ripped apart and put back together, that can be riffed on in a million different ways, that is this like incredible canvas of humanity for productions to experiment on again and again and again. And so, when you see Chekhov in Russia, you can see anything from like a fairly straight reading, which like a Russian straight reading is like an extremely experimental reading in American terms, to something that's like, essentially a pageant that just is, sort of torn apart and completely explosive, but so connected to the kind of central questions of these plays, to the central like scream of these plays. So I think like that my quest is really like to try and figure out how can we have that, right? Like not so much, well, when should I set it? Or like, what's the, kind of a literal interpretation of like what time period would be the best for it. It's less that question and more like, how can we as English speakers and Americans experience that kind of freedom and deep connectivity with the play? Which is one of the reasons why I think working with a new translation and an actual translator with you who's like really participating in the process and part of forging this production, as opposed to picking a translation off the shelf and then kind of having to adhere to that. Like that's one of the reasons that's really great. But also then in terms of like crafting an aesthetic world, I think it's more about trying to find some kind of on stage visual and oral representation of the fact that this thing feels present and alive rather than it feels contemporary. Does that, like, I know that's like a weird distinction to draw, but what I mean is like, it's a palimpsest of stuff, right? Like when we, like whenever I do Shakespeare, I'm really interested in the fact that like Shakespeare himself is full of anachronism, right? It's like he's already kind of, dressing plays set in the Roman Empire in modern, costumes that would have been modern to him, and making references about Elizabethan London in the middle of like, dramas that are technically set in, Italy 500 years before, whatever. There's like a way in which he's already palimpsesting time and making use of all of these different reference points and all of this, all of this richness of history that's come between him and his subject matter. And what I want is that freedom in Chekhov. Like I want the aesthetic ability to say what resonates. Like, when does this play feel like 1900 in Russia, and when does it feel like right fucking now? And is there a way in which we can create a visual, create that palimpsest, right? Like in my production, you're very likely to hear the Talking Heads. You're very likely to hear David Bowie. You're very likely, it's like, but you also might be seeing people who are in sort of, I don't know, costumes that are kind of collage-like, that sort of speak more to who the individual is than to like, well, let's set it in 1978 because we think that time would be interesting. So that's a really like long rambling answer to your question, but the point is that like I think we don't access enough the fact that these plays, like Shakespeare's plays, are playgrounds, are these like huge kind of brilliant, like, they're like hearts, right? They're like a machine that pumps blood, and they're like, and you're able to kind of get in there and play around and figure out like, how to make it the most expressive possible thing. So I think, ultimately I want to do something that feels incredibly present, but that also feels like it's dropping a plumb line, back through history, because that's like one of the reasons why we're still doing this, is these characters are still standing on stage saying things that are like, we haven't fucking resolved yet. Like, we haven't answered that question. Like, like we're still working on that, and it's not feeling, and it's not feeling any closer to resolution than it did 120 years ago. The last thing I really want to say is that I want to like jump on that word unrealistic that someone said earlier. Like, I think it's actually really, I think it's so important that these characters, like, there's an essay by Judith Butler where she talks about the fact that it's actually a kind of moral imperative for us to be unrealistic when thinking about the future. That like realism is a way of saying, well, I would try to change something. I would write to my representative. I would do this, that, or the other thing, but it's just not really realistic. And it's like a door closes then. So I think like Chekhov is tapping into something that's really ingrained in our natures, right? Where we think, oh, well, I would vote for Hillary, but like, it's just not realistic for like a woman to be president, and like all of a sudden this massive door closes. And Judith Butler talks about the kind of moral imperative of radically imaginative thinking, and about how like you have to think about a world that seems unrealistic in order to move towards that world. And I think that's what these characters are trying to do, and what feels so consistently alive in these plays.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, let's get going, Sarah. I'm just going to say it again because you've said it so much beautifully, and I'm just going to say it in a sort of dunderheaded way, but because it is this thing I mock myself for all the time, that whenever I'm working on a play, whenever we've got a play going on, especially if it's a classic in some way, all of us are all the time just walking around it saying, "Oh my God, everything in my life relates to that play." That play, it's so resonating for right now, and I think I mock myself despite the fact that there's a deep truth to it, which I think gets at the deep truth of what makes for a classic. And a classic is usually a play that is going to persist probably through infinite time because it somehow has tapped into the most primal, even though not simple, but usually very complex things about what it is to be human on Earth. And why am I surprised? Of course, Chekhov does that. And of course, we're all going to feel like, oh my, it's as if he wrote it for us. So I love that plumb line of time. It's not wrong. That's actually a straight and plumb line that you're going to make that goes right there, right back to the here and now because of what he's done, because of what he's created, because of this play that he's written. Just making me think about the rest of the plays in this series. I'll say in advance, I think Taylor, and I see that Cam Bush is here. Last night I got her name wrong. Cam, who was our artistic assistant, and Taylor and I are the ones who came up with this idea, in part because we were thinking about, let's use this time to test that thing and do that thing about these plays that we, the three of us, think we remember are worthy of being seen as classics through the 20th century because they are going to have tapped into something so primal and deep that let's test and see if they do resonate again. And I think Chekhov has passed that test. I have a feeling our next one, Jose Rivera's Marisol, as I've been thinking about it the last couple of weeks, is also, I think, going to get at some things about what's going on in the here and now. So yeah, I love the way this gets me thinking about how a great play becomes a classic. So
do we have time for more questions?
We could probably, have we got another question in the chat?
I have two. I have a comment and a question lingering.
Okay, let's take a comment and a question and call it a night. So
from Michael Garber, we have, it struck me with all the disappointments of the sisters, there is a generosity of spirit, especially with Olga and Irina.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
Yes.
We can kind of, from SW, my friend SW, what would be interesting is to hear what John and the actors think is the most appealing character in the play. And I'll just start, for me, it's Fedotek, because I thought Matt Markowski's performance was brilliant. And
I'm going to disappoint. And I can't answer that question. That's what I love about Chekhov and writers like this. Each of these characters, I mean, even, for me, I understood that old cliche, and it actually might be connected. When I saw a production, actually Peter Brook's production of The Cherry Orchard at BAM 100 years ago. Right? I'm right, Sarah. BAM, Cherry Orchard has fears in it, right? Yes, fears. Yeah. And I remember having processed that old cliche that there are no small parts, there are only small actors, because fears in that play just blew me away. He's this old guy, very much like Farapont in this play. And it's to Chekhov's credit, again, about this thing about Sarah's notion of clinical compassion, my notion of radical empathy, that Chekhov found a way in every single character to make me both look at him or her critically and sometimes mockingly, but also incredibly empathically, even the smallest one. So I would say all of them succeed in being my most appealing characters. But if I had to make a choice tonight, just right now, and partly because she had a cold and she totally used it in her performance, Kate Cadaro as Farapont. So Do others want to chime in? And yes, please, Christian.
I'm just going to chime in because something John said resonated, and I've been thinking about it a bit, is that Chekhov is so brilliant in his writing and brilliant in his relationship building. And like Dan had said earlier, that like if you just read this play, all of these people can sound very depressing, boring people. And we do a disservice to all of our classics, whether it's Shakespeare, Chekhov, Brecht, anyone, where we sit there and we read these scripts and go, oh, this is boring. But this is theater. It's not meant to be read. It's meant to be performed and watched and taken in that way. So if you just read it, all of these characters could be not appealing at all. But when you watch it and when you perform it, all of these characters have qualities that are appealing and are lovable and are redeemable.
Yeah. And when each of you as actor connects to that humanity and brings it to life with your own humanity, we're also connecting with you and therefore with that character. A wonderful dynamic, of course, of the theater. Anybody else?
I love Cooligan.
I was just going to say.
Play, but outside the play, I love Cooligan.
You have a weird way of showing it.
Yeah, be nicer to him.
I find the character of Natasha has a great arc.
Yeah.
In this play, because she starts out as a guest in a house who's being made fun of, and of course by the end of the play she's ruling. Ruling the house. So that's an interesting. That's a great arc.
Fascinating character. Also fascinating in the way that I imagine it's representational, right? About a kind of class system, about what's going on culturally, politically.
This is also, I'm sorry, I'm like throwing something else in there, but I just think it's really cool. So Chekhov wrote a letter to his wife, Olga Knipper, who was doing the premiere of this play, and he was super sick. So he was like down taking the waters somewhere, but he was like super paranoid about Stanislavski messing the play up. And he wrote and she was playing Masha, and he wrote his wife a letter checking in and being like, tell me everything that's going on, because I can't trust Stanislavski with 4 intelligent young women. Like, he didn't say 3, he said 4. So it's like, he knew what was up with Natasha.
Great. Anybody else from the company want to comment?
I just think the doctor is heartbreaking because as a sober person, having breaking sobriety is, it's a soul crushing kind of moment. And, you laugh at him and then you're just crushed by him, by what happened to him. And, it's just a really dimensional kind of character.
Yeah. And that Chekhov understood that so empathically. It's really quite extraordinary. Maybe as medical doctor in that way. All the doctors, yeah. I mean, Sarah mentioned it in passing, but Chekhov was also a practicing medical doctor. And yeah, just funny to think that that's the portrait of medical doctor that he gives us in this play. But yeah, beautiful. All right, it's 10:09. I was kind of gunning for 9 o'clock, so here we are. Let's say goodnight. Yes, SW. Who's SW? Dwayne's biggest fan. I'm with you. All right. All right, so thank you all, marvelous Two River Theater players. Pack your bags for Yalta. But first, a little bit of Marisol, a little bit of Jose Rivera in 2 weeks' time, right?
January 27th and 28th.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Please come back. If you don't know that play, or if you don't know Jose, you're in for a real treat. He's one of our true greats. Come on back. Thank you all out there in the audience for joining us. Thank you for all the love and support you show to us all the time. And take care of yourselves out there, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.